I show you guys the entire reveal, here's how the full process went. Another setup makeover. If you've been following the channel for a while now, you might have come across some of my setup makeovers with my home office at the top with 2 installments already, my kitchen and dining with 1, and my living room just about to go through its first. Now, don't get me wrong, my current setup is a spectacle for the senses, but the design enthusiast in me always sees some room for improvement, and once complete, you'll see how much better the setup will look. First on the chopping board was my navy L-shaped couch, and while it aesthetically fits well in my setup, it lacked a bit of functionality. It wasn't the most comfortable and also lacked in depth, so I got another couch with the same form factor from Castlery, but this one offered a lot more comfort and was deep enough to fit 2 people on the right facing chase. Assembly was straightforward. After pushing them from my front door, I started with the feet of the main section of the sofa, then did the right facing chase, and after about 30 minutes I was done. Straight away I was impressed with how it seamlessly fit in the space, whether you looked at it from the living area or kitchen and dining side. Next up was the canvas painting on the wall to the right of the living area. While there was nothing wrong with it, I just wanted something different, and the now leaf lines rung at the top of my head. Not only do they add amazing lighting to the space, but also act like a piece of art when not on, thanks to the intricate geometric designs you can create. Installation was also simple, and after settling on a design, I simply removed the paper strips on the adhesive backing and attached them to the wall, after which I attached the control hub at the very end, then attached the matte black skins to create some contrast with the white wall. What I love about them is you can put them in any setup, whether it's your bedroom, home office, dining, the choice is yours, and the best part is it's packed with smart features like rhythm music visualizer, screen mirroring, all of which you can natively control in the Nanolink app, or if you want one control center for all your lights, it's compatible with my favorite assistant Google, Amazon Alexa, Apple Home, Razer Chroma, and IFTTT. When darkness falls, that's when they really come to life together with my other living room lights. Moving along, the next order of proceedings was installing acoustic slat walls on the middle section of the wall behind the TV. Again, as it is, the TV wall looked okay, but having initially come in brown, I painted it white to flow well with the rest of my living area, and now to make it even better, I'll be mounting acoustic slat walls. Talking of acoustic slat walls, I previously installed them in my home office and I was familiar with the process, so after taking the measurements, I jumped on the tools. I first cut the pieces to size, then gave them a light sand, stained with 2 coats, then sealed with polyurethane. After that, it was now time to mount them on the wall, but before that, I had to unmount my TV and I couldn't carry an 85-inch TV by myself, so I enlisted the services of my very able friend who helped me put it in hibernation for the time being. I also pushed my media cabinet to the side to give me some space to work, then the levitating plant and bulb on either side of the TV wall also had to go into hibernation. With the wall now empty, it was time to get to work. Having used liquid nails in my home office, this time around I opted to screw them to the wall. After a few hours, everything was done and it was now time to mount the TV back, but since it was late at night, it had to be done the following day. The next day, I dusted the TV, plugged in all the cables, then ensured the Gobi LED strips were still securely attached, after which it resumed its original position with the help of my able friend once again. Next in line was the media unit. Just like the other upgrades, this wasn't necessary per se, but after using it stock standard for 3 years, I felt I could make it look like an expensive piece of furniture, but at half the cost with my newly found woodworking skills. To do this, I bought some pine timber and half-round timber moldings from Bunnings, the equivalent of Home Depot for those in the US and Canada. I then cut the pine to size 500mm deep and 2000mm in length, after which I sanded and stained both pieces. This took a lot of time, but I really enjoyed the entire process from cutting them to size to staining them and seeing the wood grain come to life. I then let the pieces dry for a few hours, added another coat of walnut stain and sealed it to protect the wood. Just before I mounted them on the media console, I got this idea of adding a rope light between the walnut board and the media unit, and after testing it out, I was super thrilled as it would look amazing together with my other living room lights. So I added the Govee neon rope light, and I like how it's one continuous light with no hotspots compared to some of the LED strips in my home office, although the diffuser reduces the hotspot effect. Installation was super easy. After removing the adhesive backing, I attached the tracks to the media console, and after a few minutes, it was good to go. Next in line was adding the spacers to separate the walnut board and the media unit, and using double-sided tape, I attached it to the top of the media console all the way to the side. Since the seal on the walnut board had not properly dried, I let it dry while I moved on to the next part of the project, adding rectangle timber blocks in front of the drawers, but after much thought, I opted to go with half-round timber molding to break the pattern since I already had too many rectangles and squares in the space. Once I settled on that, I measured each of the pieces, then started cutting them to size using my table saw, after which I sent them to match the walnut color scheme. By that point, the walnut board was ready to be installed, and I did exactly that, but to ensure they stayed in place, I screwed them to the spaces, and for those wondering how I did that through this tiny space, I used this right angle and flexible drill attachment. Looking at the before and after, it looked way better and I wasn't even done yet. From there, it was time for the half-round timber moldings to go on the draw prongs, and I attached them one by one using liquid nails, and tell you what, it really tested my patience. And to make it worse, nearing the end of the first drawer, I realized it was bigger by a millimeter or thereabouts, so I had to find a way to cover that spot, which obviously meant a quick trip to Bunnings. Over there, I got a tinier half-round timber molding and took it through the same procedure, measuring, then cutting it to size, and finally staining it. Once that was done, I finished the remaining bit as I waited for it to dry, and about an hour and a half later, I finally mounted it, and straight away I liked how they added so much texture to the media unit through the half-round molds, as well as the contrast from the many straight lines in the leading area. I then left them to firmly set overnight and started polishing the entire media console first thing in the morning, and it looked way better after this was done. At that point, I took a step back and marveled at how far the build had come, and it was at that point when I realized the silver screws I used on the slat panels were sticking out like a sore thumb, and I had to find a solution for that. I quickly remembered I had black Sharpies and that'd be the cheapest way to solve that problem, and after a few minutes I was done. Now that the build part of the cabinet was done, it was time to add some accessories, but before that, I had to clean up the cable mess and the gunk that had accumulated throughout the build process. I first lit the cables from the TV, then wiped the surfaces and vacuumed the area, after which the accessories started to come in, and first to resume their spots were the levitating bulb and plant on either side of the TV. I can't stress enough how cool they are while in action. Their gentle infinite rotations evoke a very ethereal calm to the space while working, and to date my friends can still have enough of it. I also ensured they were cable managed to carry on the clean aesthetic. Next in line was my soundbar and subwoofer, which also went back to their original positions, but since my soundbar always sat on the floor, I DIY'd this stand from some of the offcuts, then added rubber feet and felt pads at the bottom for cushioning. From there, my PlayStation 5 resumed its position, then I switched my controller charging session to these cool looking walnut ones, and they perfectly fit with the aesthetic I was going for. Up next was my modem and Wi-Fi mesh system, and instead of having them on display, I decided to put them inside of one of the drawers. Then these tiny 4 plants that resided in the mid-tier shelf of the cabinet also resumed their spots. Being a techie, controlling the tech in my setup the easiest way possible has always been at the top of my head, and having already set up a Google Nest App in my home office, staying in that ecosystem would make a lot of technical sense, and thus I added another Google Nest App on my media console and a bunch of smart plugs to control my non-smart devices. At that point, it was getting late and I also did like the lighting, so I downed the cameras. The following day I carried on with the makeover, and having left on controlling my devices with the Google Nest App, I needed to get accessories that will help me control the quality of air in my living area, kitchen and dining, given that when cooking, the aroma and sometimes smoke fill up the air, not to mention the usual pollutants in the air, and whenever the classic good old stinker sneaks out, just like Granddad in this video. To that effect, I added the Alpha Comfy air purifier and these anti-gravity humidifiers in the living and dining area, which work in tandem to not only ensure the air quality is good, but also smelling fresh and my plants get the right amount of humidity. Besides the functions I just mentioned, these anti-gravity humidifiers also act as a source of amusement thanks to the never-ending upward flow of water. Even this can't have enough of it. After placing all the accessories in their rightful places, I added these cable management boxes to hide all the cable mess and power boards. Moving away from the media unit accessories, my coffee table also needed an upgrade, and while it looks good from afar, it's got structural issues without this piece of wood thanks to a fall I had some time in June. Coming in at 109 kilos, I'm not the lightest human out there, and when I slipped from a ladder and fell on it while switching one of my recess lights, something had to give, and even though the coffee table gave in, my bum and back hurt for a considerable amount of time before the pain went away. My little backstory aside, this coffee table from Castlery would be the perfect replacement. Not only is it functional, but also ties in well with the rest of my living room furniture, and in fact, the main reason why I added some walnut to the media console. I like its beautiful geometric shape, which adds the much needed visual interest to the space, and thanks to its modularity, I get the flexibility to use it in various configurations when entertaining friends whilst enjoying plenty of storage as well. Once the coffee table was in place, I wanted to add even more functionality with a touch of design using this Moroccan leather poof and two knotted ball pillows, and boy was I impressed with my choices. For the poof, I filled it up with beanbag beans I got from Target, and the knotted ball pillows came already stuffed. If you've been following the channel for a while now, I'm sure you've heard me bring up the famous saying repetition creates rhythm on several occasions, and carrying on with that principle, the leather on the poof is referenced on my armchair, the walnut and white color on the coffee table is referenced on the media unit, just to name but a few. With everything on point in this area, my attention shifted to the Scandinavian coffee table between my leather armchair and Im's lounge chair. While it worked well for the space, providing me a spot to place my drink whilst reading a book or just kicking back, I wanted something that will provide the same functionality while adding more storage to the space, and the IKEA Gamle had was the perfect fit. Design-wise, it broke away from the squares and rectangles dominant in the space, all the while providing me extra functionality through the storage compartment. Moving along, I also wanted a better looking mail and key drop-off point, having used this 3M tape hook for almost 3 years. From the offcuts of the pine I used on the media console build, I decided to make this entryway organizer, and after a few hours, this was the end product, and all that was left was drilling 2 holes for the wall plugs, then driving in the screws just enough for the organizer to latch on, and voila! My mail and key displacement problem had just come to an end. With the build part of the makeover finished, the only thing remaining was a Christmas tree to add those Christmas fills to the setup, and it took less than 15 minutes to set up my Christmas tree. At that point, everything felt pretty much done until I stepped back and felt as though something was missing, and then I got this idea of adding a pair of park lights on either side of the TV. Using the double-sided tape they come with, I mounted them a few inches on top of the TV, and boy was I impressed. Straight away they add so much visual interest, but the real magic happens when darkness falls, and I want to go for that warm cozy vibe. Speaking of vibe, if I want a different color temperature, I can adjust it by simply tapping behind it for either warm, mid-tone or cool, then long press to increase or reduce the brightness. With that out of the way, it was now time for the reveal. After a little over 2 weeks of putting in an insane number of hours from early mornings to the dead of the night, and many splinters later, I can say I've achieved a fusion of form, functionality and aesthetics in my living room setup. I get to enjoy the comfy plush feeling of my L-shaped couch whilst being immersed in some of my favorite video games, or when catching a movie late at night with my living room lights setting the perfect ambience, and tell you what, I can't be any happier. My new coffee table offers so much functionality, whether it's entertaining friends, enjoying a meal or putting stuff aside. It has it all, not to mention my media console, which can now go toe to toe with the rest of my furniture pieces after getting a facelift, and it's not just looks. It also offers me plenty of storage for items I don't want to see in the open, and also a bit of cable management. Speaking of cable management, this cable management box helps me hide cables and power boards that were once spoiling the aesthetic of my space. As for these DualSense controller chargers, they make the space look more premium while serving up the juice whenever needed, and even though I still like the futuristic look my old one added to the media console, these walnut ones are a class apart. The Slat panels, on the other hand, tying together the living area, act as a feature wall, and in general just elevate the look of the room, which, to be honest, I'm happy how it turned out. Well, there you have it, folks. That sums up my cozy living room makeover, and as it stands, it's right at the sweet spot of where I've always wanted it to be. But being a design enthusiast, an iteration is never out of question, but for now, that's the best I've ever had. That aside, I hope this video inspires you and gives you some ideas on how to design and create your ideal living room setup. And if you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and click the notification bell to get notified whenever I post a new video. To see how I transformed my home office a couple of months ago, check out this video. Till then, people of the internet, I'm signing out. See you on the next one.